We're back for another edition of the Sport Limerick Soccer Podcast this evening, where we're joined by Noel and Jason O'Connor. Jason, we'll start with yourself, and no better place to start with than a superb victory for Treaty United over UCD last Friday at the Markets Field in very warm conditions on the night. You mentioned in your Sport Limerick piece at the weekend, Jason, that you felt it was the best performance Treaty produced all season. It certainly was a great performance from the team.
Yeah, I felt it was, Adrian. Look, you could clearly see the formation, I suppose, for once. And there was transition from defence to attack. They were the two big ones for me. Like you look into the middle of the field, obviously Callum was sitting. That was clear. Joe Collins was in the middle, and Jack, not only with his 2 goals, but he was the furthest midfielder attacking-wise, and that was clear. UCD were poor, I felt. That was kind of reflected, I suppose, in the subs, even the med. When you take off Sean Brennan, you take off Colin Whelan, obviously that it's not a good night for UCD, but that's taken that away from Treaty. They really exploited UCD's formation. They defended really narrow as a 4. UCD didn't pose any threats in the wide areas whatsoever. And they were looking for kind of high balls over that back 4, looking at that high line that Treaty would have been guilty of playing in the past. But that wasn't the case on Friday night. And we could hear Tommy barking out orders to Ty Grind in particular and Mark Ludden early on to move the ball quickly from defence to Willie Armshaw in particular, I suppose. But look, it wasn't the case that it was long ball stuff, definitely not. They played at the right times and they played in the right areas. I thought Ludden was fantastic, to be honest. His diagonal switch passes to Matt Keane a lot of the time on the right flank were pinpoint. They were exceptional. Obviously, his cross for Jack's first goal. And it was a great header. And look, we've seen them runs kind of from Jack, obviously sporadically, but his goal against that loan was a third man run, if you like, into the box. He made his way into the box again on Friday night, directed that header past Larkin Healy, and there was no saving it. They bounced back really well from conceding the penalty. Looked like a knocking ball really was running out of play and coming together with Callum more than anything, and Whelan tucked it away. But the response was fantastic, and we said last week about the 2 wide players we were referring to, Edward McCarthy and Matt Keane, not giving the team a whole pile going forward. Well, Matt Keane delivered a great ball in for Jack's second goal, and he tucked it away, so kudos to him for that as well. UCD didn't do a whole pile, obviously. Liam Kerrigan had that chance in the second half, but I thought Ty was very good as well, Adrian. It's important to mention him. I had doubts about him under the high ball, as I call it, not crosses into the box, but kind of balls down his throat, balls over the back 4 earlier on in the season. But he was very, very solid on Friday night, and he made a couple of very important saves. And look, he'll be disappointed, I suppose, with the penalty as well, because other than that, you would have fancied him to keep a clean sheet. But tactically spot on from Tommy, really, really good. Some great passages of play. As I said, not playing in the wrong areas, playing at the right time, and in the right areas. The only thing I'd have a question about was Willie Armshaw being withdrawn, I suppose, 3 or 4 minutes before half time. I didn't really see the point in that. We were watching it, obviously, and we could see he was gassed out. But as I said, UCD weren't giving Treaty any problems in the wide areas, and I don't think it would have affected the game to leave him on till the break, and possibly affect his confidence withdrawing him that early. But that's not even a negative. There's no criticism. I thought it was their best performance, and now a very, very big gap, 8 points between them in 6th place.
Yeah, certainly. And Noel, I must say, before I went to the game Friday, I started becoming fearful, because going on the first game that between the 2 sides at the Belfield Bowl, and the fact that generally Treaty then tend to sit in, they're more defensive. UCD like to keep the ball in those energy-sapping conditions. I was fearful that if that did occur, that then Treaty would be in trouble. It didn't materialise that way, in fairness, and it was a very good performance from Treaty.
No, we talked about last week maybe being a bit more positive. particularly against UCD. And I think they were a lot more positive. I mean, I think they were on their, that they were on the front foot from the start, which was good. I said that, UCD were going through a pretty difficult time of late with, kind of one win in 5 or 6. It was important not to let them get a foothold in the game. And like Jason said, I thought they were excellent all over the pitch. They dominated the game. A couple of great goals, like the positions that Jack Lynch gets himself into. I mean, if you look at his 4 goals, I was trying to remember the other one actually, and I remember it now against Athlone, where the ball was played down the middle between them. But he also got on the end of a flick from Red O'Hanlon in the box against Wexford to finish it, which was a really advanced position. He'd actually got on. He'd got on ahead of the centre forward. His back post position for the second goal, and he certainly has a great knack for getting beyond that striker and scoring some goals. And obviously they were two really big goals, and they were right to play narrow because UCD's philosophy isn't really to go beyond the full back and try and get crosses in. They'd be a bit more measured than that. I thought they did get a couple of balls, if you like, in between the Treaty centre halves. I think there was one, was it Paul Doyle or something? He kind of rounded the keeper but took another touch. Took it away from the goals. Barry was sharp out a couple of times to intercept him as well. But other than that, they didn't really look dangerous. You didn't really feel fearful at all for Treaty, and you felt really confident all during the game that they were going to get the 3 points.
Yeah, certainly. And Jason, just before we finished with your first point, you mentioned the league standings and how they now are, there is such a healthy gap, between Treaty and Athlone in 6th now. I put that obviously to Tommy after the game, like I have on a couple of occasions in the past, and he was, as we expected, trying his best to downplay it, but also realising that it would have seemed ridiculous if he tried to downplay it too much. It's not just, it's gone beyond now. I say that you even see the club, Jason, were putting it out there that this was a playoff battle between 2 teams. I mean, there's no doubt in it now. I mean, you've 2 games left in the second round, going into the last round of fixtures. It's exciting times now.
Oh, it is, Adrian. The only fear for me, I suppose, when we heard Sean Gearns was going to be out for possibly 4 to 6 weeks, that there'd be a big gap there. And I've said it over a couple of podcasts that he's missed when he's out, but Mark Walsh fitted in really, really well there. No nonsense defending. And do you know what that does, Adrian? That gives confidence to the people around you, and the other players in the back 4 know that, like Sean Gearns, he's not going to be taking unnecessary risks and playing risky passes in wrong areas and stuff like that. And he's very good man-to-man as well. So, look, while we miss Sean Gearns, Mark Walsh, an able replacement, really. And Kieran Hanlon looks to be growing in confidence and fitness every week. I thought he was exceptional as well. Really top-class centre-forward performance, holding up the ball. Made it very, very difficult for Jack Keeney and Todd and Ozam as well, all through the evening, with his physical presence. And that's very important as a striker, Adrian, that you have that nasty kind of side to the game as well, while playing within the rules. But
wouldn't be like you to promote that.
Well, look, it's part of the game, Adrian, most definitely, and Red Hanlon has that element to his game, and technically very, very good on the night as well. But look, you rightly say, the players now know that, and Tommy knows, whether they're willing to say it publicly, obviously not, but it would take a huge implosion now to miss out on the playoffs. And look, do Treaty want to get promoted? That's a different conversation. I don't think they're ready for that just yet, and I don't think that would be good for the club just yet. But I think it'd be a fantastic achievement by Tommy and the group to get into the playoffs, and that has to be the goal now.
Yeah, certainly. There was that one part of me, you are excited about the team being involved and Noel in the playoffs, but there was one part of me that saying that maybe it would be like Derby County back in 2009, who got promoted to the Premier League when they were one of the favourites to go down, and that didn't end well for them when they were promoted. It could be a step too early, but getting to the playoffs would be a massive achievement in itself. Brings us on, I suppose, Noel, to what is going to be a mammoth clash Sunday for Treaty. They've welcomed Dundalk to the Markets Field Sunday at 2:00. The game not being on a Friday because of Dundalk's involvement in Europe. So it was changed. It's wrong time almost to play Dundalk, Noel, because Vinnie Pert is back there now. He's got 5 wins in 7 games. So, you know, they're coming into form. I mean, they still have the players of the calibre of Michael Duffy and Patrick Hoban. I mean, it's very hard to see anything other than a Dundalk win, but, you know, it is cup football. You know, it's cliche, but I suppose you never know.
You never know when they're at home. And, you know, we talk about free shots every week. It's certainly a great game for the squad to look forward to. They have an extra 2 days rest as well. And Dundalk are in Europe, I think, on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And I think they're away from home. Now, you saw Bohemians yesterday making 8 changes for their league game against Longford. It depends on what, you know, where Vinnie Perth's priorities lie, because they'll have the second leg the following week. Obviously, the European gig is very important for them in terms of finance. You know, and they've lost a lot of good players as well in the last 5 or 6 months. You know, really, really seriously good players through injury and departures. I don't think the squad is as full as it used to be, and it's a great opportunity for Treaty. It's certainly a game to look forward to.
Yeah, certainly, Jason. I mentioned there about the quality that Dundalk still possess within the ranks. We all know that it's not the Dundalk team that totally dominated there for a few years. But still, I suppose you'll probably be on the same wavelength that it would take an extraordinary turn of events for Treaty to be able to turn them over.
It would, Adrian, you know, and Noel mentioned the free shot there, and we've said it a few times about league games, you know, but this really is the definition of a free shot. There's nothing to lose. The cup won't be a priority for Tommy, that's for sure. And that could be reflected in the lineup, you know. You mentioned last week about Matt Keane in particular, that puts in an awful lot of work in yards, and he might change up the starting 11, you know, that might be reflected in the lineup. Callum McNamara, we know, 20 years of age, has played an awful lot of games lately. Kieran Hanlon might be rested, and you could give McKevitt a game, and obviously we saw Sean McSweeney come off the bench last week, who obviously has been out for a while, so maybe he could start. Clyde O'Connell is another person who's missed a lot of games for different reasons. You can bring in Ed McCarthy again. So I think that'll be reflected in Tommy's lineup. You know, it was interesting to see Vinnie Perth in the Marketsfield, wasn't it, Adrian, last week at the UCD game? You know, and you rightly said, have suffered a little fall from grace in the League of Ireland. But look, the quality is still there. You mentioned some of them: Daniel Kelly, Michael Duffy, Andy Boyle, Patrick McElhenney. The players are there, you know, and well, I don't expect it to be an easy afternoon for Dundalk. I would expect them to advance to the next round.
Yeah, just on Dundalk, I suppose, Noel, it's a funny one. There's been trouble there, we'll say, behind the scenes so far this season, and last season we mentioned that there was definitely trouble behind the scenes. Then you had only, I think it was a week and a half ago, was it, that now they're losing another influential player in Patrick McElhenney. There was a lot of debate about the timing of that announcement, just as the players were coming into the dressing room in Dundalk, and Vinnie Perth had a really big shot at his ex-assistant in Rory Higgins, saying that he made his reputation from that club as an assistant coach, and he probably should have showed some more respect. There's probably a worry for Dundalk in the future, isn't there? You know, if you're continually losing players, Chris Shields gone now as well. I know it was always going to happen, but they're probably not then replacing them with the same calibre at the same time.
No, and on that, I'm surprised no one mentioned the fact that Dundalk mentioned the signing of Carl Shepherd the week of the FAI Cup final there 3 or 4 years ago when he was with Cork City. Now he subsequently changed his mind.
That's right.
And it was in print that he did change his mind because of the way that John Caulfield had reacted to the news. You would think like 99 managers out of 100 would drop him out of the squad and kind of banish him for the week, but you know, he made him the cornerstone of the week, and he ended up scoring the winning penalty, I think, or certainly one of the penalties. So Vinny, he'd a year out of football now. He should have remembered all these things in all his free time. But I think like that Dundalk are certainly in a bit of trouble in terms of the players they're losing. I think there's talk about Michael Duffy maybe returning to Derry as well. There's talk about Patrick Hoban as well going, you know. So listen, they are going to be a pale shadow of what they were a few years ago. Obviously, they're still a very, very strong team. I was surprised that he went back there, Vinnie Perth, because, you know, they did sack him and I thought it was a bit soon for him to go back. But look, it's like a drug at times. You'd miss it so much, and it was a great opportunity for him. I don't think it's going to be the same as it was before. A good cup run and maybe to try and get into the top four is probably his priority, and go as far in Europe as they can. But I don't see them, scaling any of the heights, certainly in Europe, that they did maybe subsequent years back, excluding last year.
Yeah, Jason, because of the gap between the two sides, and obviously Treaty generally throughout the season have been quite defensive. I know there's only one way they're going to play against a Dundalk team. The only thing I suppose is that you also need to have some sort of threat going forward, don't you, so that you're not pinned back in your own half all game as well.
Well, that's something we spoke about, Adrian, the early part of the season, and we know how effective Mark Ludden is. We mentioned that earlier, and set pieces Treaty are very, very good at. So, look, they're not going to come out all guns blazing and attack Dundalk. I think that would be a bit of a daft approach, and it wouldn't be wise to do that. So, look, they'll probably try to keep a clean sheet for as long as possible, hope to get a break at the other end through a set piece or a mistake. And it'll be kind of back to pre-UCD approach, I suppose, Adrian. But look, I think it was Mark Walsh said it after the game, on Friday night, that they haven't rolled over to anyone this season, and they're certainly not going to start now, especially at home. So there'll be no pressure on the Treaty lads. They can go and enjoy it, and it's a nice yardstick to test themselves against, Adrian.
Yeah, it definitely is. Noel, I know I mentioned earlier in the season when we talk about when you put Jason O'Connor's name into Google, that pictures come up of him against Shelbourne and the likes. When you put your own name into Google, one of the main pictures is yourself and Shane Gearan, after the 2006 FAI Cup clash against Drogheda United. I have to say it's probably a similar gap, Noel, this week in some respects, is that Drogheda were the top two anyway at the time, if I remember correctly, in the Premier Division, and yourselves, you were top of the First Division, but obviously there is a gap there. You went up there and won a replay. What was your approach, I suppose, in that week, and would you have any advice for Tommy going into the game there on Sunday?
Yeah, look, I'm sure the guys around Tommy will give him plenty of good advice, and sure, he was involved around that time. Look, we did a lot of homework on Drogheda, and they were a fine side. I think they went on to win the Premier League that year, I think. The sign.
Thanks, he finds the crowd and the games and the opposition a motivation tool for him, and he certainly seems that way now in recent weeks. The couple of goals, the couple of penalties, obviously against Cork, certainly has helped him. But it's visible to me, Adrian, he's growing in confidence. He's up there on his own a lot of the time, and on Friday night he was up against probably three centre backs, and when we saw Jack joining in, he wouldn't have been able to join in without Kieran's hold-up play, and he linked it very well with the two wide players as well. So he's grown in confidence, and I'm sure he's taken on board what Tommy and Mike Shield and Dave Rooney are saying to him. And it's a credit to the work that's been done there, and I'm delighted for him. I really am, and I hope the goals keep flowing for Kieran.
Yeah, certainly, and he is a very good character around the dressing room as well, it must be said. Noel, it's a bumper weekend FAI wise in Limerick, in that it is a pity that there's still going to be restricted crowds, because you would have had a brilliant crowd at the Fair Green as well on Saturday, had it been permitted. They host Finn Harps at 4:00. It's the second time actually that these two have met in the FAI Senior Cup. They did have a meeting, I think it was 2003, I'm not exactly sure on that one, and Jonathan Speake scored the winner to send Finn Harps through, but it was a very tough game. I suppose it's obviously it's extremely tough. Fairview have it even tougher because they're a junior side playing a Premier Division outfit, and also it must be said Fairview have only had 3 games, possibly 4, I suppose, before they play Finn Harps, but all outside of Athenry, not great intensity and friendlies. Talk about a serious challenge there, but obviously one that Fairview will relish as well.
Yeah, great game from her. I was actually at that match in 2003, and I do remember Jonathan Spieth scoring the winner. Yeah, a seriously tough game for Fairview, but again, look, they've nothing to lose. There's no expectation. Finn Harp's on a pretty horrible run as well, you know. I mean, they started so well, had a couple of brilliant wins. Now they can't buy a win. I was talking to their assistant manager there a couple of weeks ago. Even the Watford game, he said, you know, they missed a penalty, hit the post a few times. Everything just seems to be going wrong. And a resurgent Watford winning over the weekend against Sligo then brings a point between them. So you just don't know. They'll certainly have their homework done, you know, and they won't kind of dismiss it. They had a good cup run last year as well, and you think that they'll see this game maybe as a stepping stone towards getting back to winning ways, because at the moment they can't buy a win. It should be a realistic opportunity for them to win, particularly as Fairview obviously are out of season or only in kind of pre-season. Obviously the game against Athenry in extra time will have brought them on a fair bit, but you know, you would think that they'd probably want maybe 3 or 4 games at least before they'd face this one. But Jason Purcell, a very canny operator, and you know, a fantastic record in cup competitions with St Michael's and Fairview. And they certainly won't make it easy for the Harps. Like, you know, I've seen them play. They are again very, very, very solid. He doesn't take any chances. He won't mind if the score is 0-0. He won't mind if it goes to extra time or penalties. They stay in the game as long as they can, and they don't give away anything cheap. And they hope to, you know, to capitalise on a set piece themselves, or a mistake, or a chance at the edge of the box. And I'm sure that is going to be a tight game. I couldn't see certainly Finn Harps running away with it. You know, I could see that maybe going even to extra time.
Yes, that would be a great achievement for Fairview. Jason, Noel mentioned that Finn Harps aren't on a very good run, and all of a sudden now with Watford picking up a few points, like they're looking over their shoulders. Would you be of the opinion, like Noel, that maybe, you know, this is an opportunity for them to get back to winning ways? Because when you're in a bad form, you know, will they really want to be making wholesale changes, you know, going to a junior setup of a team who, you know, would be full of confidence, to be fair, to Fairview, and, you know, in a cup game, I suppose, but do you think Ollie Horgan will try and play as strong a side as he can and not make wholesale changes?
I definitely think he will, Adrian. You know, you mentioned there they're on a poor enough run. It's 1 point in their last 5 games, and it's only 3 goals scored in those 5 games, Adrian. So they'll be looking to boost confidence with an emphatic win, I'd imagine. You know, Adam Foley, I suppose, is the real goal threat. He's 8 goals this season. You know, we all know about Carlos Sullivan, obviously. He came through the ranks, I suppose, the underage system with Limerick FC and broke in a couple of years ago. So I wouldn't be so sure now that we could be looking at extra time and things like that. I think Harps will be looking to put down a marker. Noel quite rightly said Fairview had a huge disadvantage. They're only midway through their pre-season, and Athenry was the toughest game they had. And speaking to some of the Fairview lads after that game, fitness was an issue for them, you know, in that game, because Athenry have played some league games themselves, and they managed to take Fairview all the way to penalties. So, look, we speak about free shots, and it's a great occasion for Derek White and Jason Purcell. And look, they've got some very, very good players, Adrian. Conor Coughlin, I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. He's someone, in my opinion, that is good enough to play League of Ireland First Division at least, you know, and he has great potential. They also have AJ O'Connor and Ross Mann and Stephen Bradley. They're all very, very good players, you know. And look, Fairview are the flagship junior team in Limerick, Adrian, both on and off the pitch. There's no doubt about that. Everybody else are playing catch up. So I wouldn't like to see the difference in levels being shown too much. But when you're dealing with someone like Ollie Horgan, he's not going to take anything for granted. The team is going to be very, very, very well organised. And look, while normally they do better against the bigger sides, I'd expect them to come through Fairview. There's no doubt about that.
Just to stick with yourself for one moment, Jason. In one way for Fairview as well, it's probably one of the worst draws to get, because Ollie Horgan, as you said, is a shrewd operator. And also as well, Harps would be known to not shy away from the physical and the horrible side of the game. So it's not like you're going to be taking them down a peg. And one thing that I have noticed is that maybe height-wise, the Fairview team wouldn't have a lot of very tall players, and Harps are very strong physically. So one thing I suppose Jason Purcell will be saying is, let's try and limit these set pieces as well.
He will. And look, Noel quite rightly said Jason's a very shrewd operator. He's had his own spell in League of Ireland, and done very, very well there as a player. He's done it all at junior level in a management and playing sense, so he'll have the lads well organised, Adrian, but the fitness side of things is going to be very difficult to match with Harps, and it's not going to be easy, especially if these hot weather conditions continue. We're sweating here just sitting at the table. You can imagine what the players will be like in the fair green if these conditions are the same. But look, Jason won't give up anything cheap. There's no doubt about that. He'll have his homework done, but I think the gap is just a little bit too big, Adrian, and I hope they can make a game for it as long as possible.
Yeah, we certainly do hope so. And we wish both Fairview and Treaty United the best of luck. We'll be at both games as well this weekend. Noel, just to finish on a final note, and it's a very positive note, actually, to be fair, your namesake, Mr. Mooney, Noel Mooney, a man who you know very well and managed with Limerick FC, a proud Cappamore man. He's got the top job as CEO in the Welsh Football Association. It was announced this afternoon. We'd like to extend our congratulations to Noel as well. A huge achievement for him, and he has been making great strides in UEFA, but this is a great achievement for Noel Mooney.
Yeah, listen, he's been a charismatic character for a long time. Remember, we signed him as a 17-year-old in the mid-90s, actually. And he was still eligible to play youth football, but he hadn't really interest in playing that. He was playing reserves in the Munster Senior League and got a few games with Limerick. But his career, I think it certainly took off, say, when he came to Limerick, after his time with Cork and Shamrock Rovers. He did show a lot of interest, maybe too much for a player. I felt I would have said it to him in the off-the-field stuff in terms of commercial managing and that. I'd have been a lot happier if he just focused on his goalkeeping for another couple of years. But look, I mean, obviously he knew what he wanted, and he's made a great success of his professional career. He was very highly rated in the FAI. I know, like, he got very bad press with his association, with John Delaney, but at the end of the day, the man gave him a job and gave him a chance. As you said rightly, he's done really well in UEFA, and obviously the Welsh FA have seen that quality and have brought him on board, and I'm sure he's going to be, really, really successful there. And I'm really delighted for him. He's a guy I know a long time and a very decent individual, and listen, he'll make a great success of it.